Welcome to the Healing Vibe Show. What's up, lady? How you doing?
Well, how are you?
I'm good.
Notice that. Notice that catch? I'm talking and like,
What's up? How you doing today?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm good. Wonderful. Everything is well. Family, please like, subscribe, share, circulate, and donate to the channel, of course. And do remember, like and subscribe and share. Please. It's all about building these algorithms, building the algorithms, and sharing is caring. You know what I'm saying? Sharing is caring. So yeah, how's T.O. doing? How's Toronto? We crossing bridges and borders. What's up?
Toronto is popping.
Hey, is there a national song for Toronto?
Toronto?
Yeah. Like Jamaica used to have it still has a national song.
Yeah, we have a Canadian national anthem.
Oh, it's for the whole. It's for the whole. Okay, it's for all of Canada. Okay, yeah, yeah. I think I have it in a book because I used to have a lot of books from Canada.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land.
Yes, Lord have mercy.
And the Jamaican one, how does it go again?
Oh, Jamaica
land, we love Jamaica.
That's old Jamaica. It's a prayer. I tell people that's a prayer, man. If you listen to it, and me and my ex-girlfriend of mine years ago, we talked about it being a prayer for Jamaica, but a lot of people don't bear witness to the prayer of Jamaica, and a lot of them don't use it. They don't use the prayer, and follow their hearts, and move with what the prayer really says, But today is going to be a wonderful show. We got our dear brother in the backstage. We're going to bring him up at exactly 8:00, and we got some great shows coming up also right here on the Healing Vibes. Right after this, next week, we got this beautiful sister. Tell us about Natasha Pierre-Louis.
Natasha, she is a designer, a web developer, and she's written or illustrated a really powerful book that helps with anxiety. So yeah, it's really
great show.
It's going to be a treat to talk to her.
I can't wait to have her on and let's talk about it. Also, on the week after that, we have the one, the only. We have 2 weeks after that because I think we need to get the one that's coming on the 6th. Who's the person? We got somebody coming on the 6th, right? Natasha's the 6th, and then he's going to come on the 13th. That's right.
Yes.
He's coming on the 13th. This is a good friend of mine, Samuel F. Reynolds. He was from skeptic to believer, a personal journey in discovering the transformational or transformative power of astrology. Man, believe me, he's an extraordinary astrologer. And he also goes back into like 800 years of astrology when astrology and astronomy used to be one and the same until they decided to split it up. A lot of people don't even know that. And, like Europeans usually do, they split stuff up. They divide and conquer. I don't know why they do that. Why is that in their spirit? Lord have mercy. But I'm not going there.
It's a perfect game to distract,
I'm not going there. Let's leave it alone. But we're going to bring on our guest right now. Hold on one second. Let's read this bio. Dr. Christian Claxton Gregory is the 8th child of Dick and Lillian Gregory. Dr. Gregory practiced in Washington, D.C. for 25 years, caring for D.C. natives, leading entertainment figures and friends in the movement, including Rosa Parks, Coretta Scott King, Betty Shabazz, Dorothy Hyatt, Cicely Tyson, and Stevie Wonder. Woo! Bum, 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 bum. Together, he and Dick Gregory formed Dick Gregory Media, Inc. In 2015. And since his father's passing in 2017, Christian Gregory has managed his father's estate and intellectual property and has successfully guided and development of the other projects about his father's life life, including the stage play Turn Me Loose and the film, the one and only Dick Gregory. And I am so proud to bring this brother on and spread some love. Let's welcome right here for the first time on the Healing Vibe, the King Simon Presents, and also Carrie Ann Ingram's YouTube page, the one, the only Christian Gregory.
Wow. How about
welcome?
We need to take this show on the road. Holy can't always get an intro like that. Now I see why they call you. Not your name is King, my dear brother. So thank you, Carrie Ann. I appreciate anytime I can jump on a platform. Healing Vibes. That's a heck of a claim. So we know if we're a show about healing and we're reaching out, not all vibes are good vibes, but if it's a healing vibe, it's a good vibe. So once I got the invite, I said that's a must, because I'm a Gregory. I'm all about healing. It's in my genes. So what an absolute pleasure to join both of you in your audience and your fan base. And I'm just excited to dig in and get started. So thank you.
Brother Gregory, your father loved my energy when I emceed a show that I produced for him back in 2012 or 2012. Because I'm an MC. I used to MC on Madison Square Garden stage. I MC that. I used to do radio, and he's been on WWRL. And I got to tell you this story. We was on WWRL. He was about to interview over the phone, and Karen Hunter was about to interview him.
Yes.
And Karen, because I was a board op. And I had to answer the phone and patch him in. But before she pulled him in, I asked the Gregory, I said, brother, what makes a good comedian? And without the flinch, he said, reading makes a good comedian. But after that, Bill Cosby came on 2 weeks after. I asked Bill Cosby offline, what makes a good comedian? He said the same thing, reading.
Wow. Said, how about that? Two titans.
So without a flinch, both of them said reading.
Two titans of comedy to both say that. And it's both Bill Cosby and my dad Dick Gregory, their comedy was topical. Yes. And it's which my dad would always, and I'll say this briefly, explain the difference between being a comedian and a humorist. So a comedian is going up there and telling the same jokes night after night, and it's a beautiful thing because laughter is medicine. But as a humorist, you are taking things in real time, digesting and turning it out, and you can turn funny on like that. My father always said the best laugh you ever had was not from a comedian. It was from a funny friend or aunt or uncle that just and my dad would refer to them as humorist. And Dick Gregory was both a comedian and a humorist. And when you can balance the two of those, it's a real blessing. And laughter is medicine. And both the names you mentioned, they were master surgeons when it came to their craft. So very special to hear that. And I know my dad was thrilled to engage with you and your energy leading into that 2012. I know Karen Hunter well. She's a friend. I do her show often. So once you said that, I had total recall. I think I scheduled that show for my dad.
That's my girl, man. Karen is a good sister, man, and I've known her for years. We used to work on the same radio station on WWRL. I think she was co-host with Steve Malsberg, and she was co-host with Rabbi Shmuley Botek and all of these guys. And so they put her with a lot of people just to keep the black woman in there doing what they got to do. And that's what I loved about WWRL and Adrian Gaines and all of them, which is now defunct. They no longer exist, of course, but that was one of the oldest Black-owned and operated radio stations back in the day. Bob Law was my boss at one time. Legendary Bob Law and all of them. So, and Frankie Crocker was one of my judges, one of my teachers.
Those are and when you think of it for a moment, defunct, but now here we are now with 10 times the reach that these stations had. And that's just evolution. That's just as things evolve, and we can be so selective now as an audience of what we calibrate and tune into. And it just is the opportunities are endless. So to take the skills you have from your terrestrial radio days and to bring it to where we are now, it's a real blessing. And certainly you're reaching more folks than what you were reaching there. So, kudos, job well done. Job well done.
I love you and Dick Gregory the same way, man. I remember every time he opened up, he always thanked the regular people. He thanked the cleaning people.
Without them, we're nothing. Without them, we're nothing.
Such a loving spirit, man. Go ahead, Carrie. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And we're so excited to just dive in and to hear all about who this incredible man, gifted soul was. And, the fact that you got to live in the household with him, that's
Share the genetics.
inside scoop on how he was able to maintain the life that he was able to out in public do to help humanity. He had to have a strong team or tribe because there was 10 of y'all, right?
It's a true tribe. So there's 10 of us Gregory children. And I'm one of the babies, number 8. So I'm number 8. My sister Ayana's number 9, and my brother Johanse is number 10. So we were affectionately known as the 3 little guys. So life was easy for us because we had a bigger than life father, a bigger than life mother, with so many older siblings. I mean, we were just like ducklings along for the ride. But I have 7 sisters, which means I had 8 mothers. So my manners, I'm well behaved. I don't step out of line often. I've had good role models.
Awesome. But what was it like having a father that was such a big titan, that was so instrumental to that massive change in the world in so many different pockets?
That's always a difficult question to answer. So and you would think by now at 53, I'd be able to just say, hey, it was like this, but it was so profound. It was every day. There was laughter, but there was so much intellect and wisdom. And you can read things about wisdom, but when you watch it operate, there's a lot of folks, due to my father being who he was, I had close proximity to some of the greatest, not just entertainers, but business and healthcare. And to watch him be the same person wherever he was, wherever he operated, and always have his bedrock principles, and just see the respect that just from being so incredibly solid, which was hard to do, because back then as an entertainer, you couldn't split the fence. You couldn't be an activist and an entertainer. You either did lightweight activism and stayed where you had to behave, or you lost everything. And people always tell the story, as Dick Gregory walked away from entertainment in the early 60s, he was the highest paid entertainer in the world. Well, he would have walked away from it, but the plan originally was to attempt to do both. But once he stepped over a little too far, he became blackballed, and the industry actually closed the door on him. And he never minded. He never went back and knocked on that door. After his performance, and back then the largest stage for comedians and entertainers was certainly the Chicago Playboy Club. And my dad having the opportunity to really break the glass ceiling in comedy there. When he broke through that door, he had the presence of mind to keep his foot jammed in the door. So yes, he was enjoying it, but he left that door open as a pipeline for all of the Black comedians that came after him and were allowed to. Certainly, as we know, there were comedians that predate Dick Gregory, but if they were talking to white audiences, they had ill-fitting clothing, exaggerated facial expressions, talked with an unnatural accent. They had to dumb themselves down to make the white audience feel comfortable with their presence. And here, Dick Gregory, sharply dressed, cigarette in hand, which was a status symbol now it horrifies us healthcare. Cocktail glass, and just would sit there and go through the front page of the Daily News, which many of the people in the audience didn't even understand. So they were halfway embarrassed and halfway trying to figure out who is this incredibly intelligent, well-spoken, educated Black man that has not flinched and has us. Laughter's universal. And so it's contagious. So once, I'm sure it was stone-faced there initially, but once you started warming up and showing them you have no fear. My dad would often say, fear and God cannot occupy the same space. That doesn't mean we shouldn't respect fear. Fear is a reflex. So if something's about to happen, you startle, move. But when you accept a lifestyle that is purely based on fear, it does terrible things to the body. My dad would go he would skirt right up to the line just to the level of almost being reckless, but was definitively fearless. And he took that same skill set when he stepped over to the civil rights movement and was equally fearless in a much more dangerous place than naturally he was as an entertainer. And so you mentioned it during the intro, but the one and only Dick Gregory, poster over my shoulder, has made all of us, and I'm very happy to say, Emmy Award winning. And not that we need outside folks to validate us, but these films have to make money. Until we start financing them all ourselves, and I'm not talking about one or two, I'm talking about broad spectrum. They need to be viable, and they need to be financially profitable and successful, so we get more of them. So I'm honored to say there's a 3-picture deal that we have, that the estate of my father has, with Kevin Hart's Heartbeat. So Kevin Hart was executive producer of the one and only Dick Gregory. Executive producer of Right to Offend, which is another phenomenal Dick Gregory documentary. It's really about comedy, but part 1 is about Dick Gregory, and that is on A&E Network. And we're in the beginning phases of doing the Dick Gregory biopic, which is just, man, I'm silenced and talk, but it really, so many people know the later in life silver beard kind of belly, and not angry but passionate Dick Gregory. All over YouTube. Most of them don't know the 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 60-year-old, and he's been saying the same message for his lifetime. So it's just, I'm thrilled as a loving son, and it's a high honor to take this information and show it to a generation that only knows the 80-year-old version of him. And the passion is the same, but the delivery is different. And we all have elders in our family. You know, as they get older, they communicate a little different. Yes. Once an adult, twice a child. That second childhood gives you a lot of laterality that you didn't have in the first childhood. And it's just a beautiful thing to witness and embody and be surrounded by. Just a true blessing. There's no question about it.
You know, brother Christian, in the book, the Power of Laughter stated, for some reason, you can get closer to the world with a smile. 24 hours a day, my mother smiled to the extent it was molded on her face. Never showed nobody nothing. Sometimes I believe she tried to hide it from herself, and nobody knew. Did you know your grandmother? Did you ever
Power of the Mind? So Lucille Gregory, I did not know the very powerful Lucille Gregory, but I honorably carry on her genetic code in line. And the important thing that my dad, that statement doesn't capture is the absolute poverty that they lived in. And my dad explained hunger became his best friend. He embraced it. When he would eat, he would almost feel guilty because he missed hunger. And he explains very early on, and we touched on it in the book there as well, King Simon. He explained that his mother
in 1803 North Taylor.
1803 North.
He made a promise that we will never go back there, and he did it.
I'm keeping that pledge. And I'm keeping that pledge. But Lucille Gregory would touch him in a way, and touch his stomach in a way that was so tactilely stimulating that it would cease his hunger pains. And that's the power of not just love, but also the power of people who've had chronic poverty, chronic hunger. That's why people who suddenly find themselves dealing with hunger or food insecurity struggle with it so much, because they don't have those coping mechanisms. So the poverty coping mechanisms that Lucille Gregory instilled in Dick Gregory, when he mixed that into the high-flying success and financial abundance that he had, it was a perfect mix, but it made him a conduit for money. He never wanted to hold on to it. He just wanted it to flow through him and go back to his community. I often say Dick Gregory was a spiritual trillionaire. Everywhere he went, he was just a man that gave. And similar to Dr. Sebi's son, Victor's a good friend. And I was telling him, both of our dads were medicine men, where Dr. Sebi went out into the bush, went out and grew things. Dick Gregory went to Whole Foods and Sprouts, and he was an urban sourcer. And oh boy, don't ever. We were with Kathy Hughes once, and she mentioned that she wasn't feeling well. She got 10 bags of groceries, just a juicer. I mean, he was just a perpetual. That's you mentioned in the intro, me taking care of Stevie Wonder, me taking care of Rosa Parks, me taking care of Cicely Tyson, all that was because my dad was already their healer. He was there teaching them how to juice, teaching them how to not live to eat, but eat to live.
Ain't to live. Elijah
And so
Muhammad.
it's the wisdom. He has a whole book on it. Cooking
Yeah.
with Mother Nature for folks who eat. So, and that's all of us naturally.
What was his take on Elijah Muhammad's How to Eat to Live?
Oh, loved it. If you
Yeah.
Google Dick Gregory and Elijah Muhammad, he was
Yeah.
on a talk show where he specifically said, "We've been shown the way. We've been shown the path." And he said, "It's a brother that they don't give credit for it." So he would always go out of his way. And he had a lot. He said, you know, and my dad's a comedian, so everything's rooted in comedy. But he was also very serious. He said, these brothers out here selling newspapers and bean pies. It's 100 degrees. They don't have a drop of sweat on them, not a single bump on their face. That's the way to lead. All of them fit as a fiddle.
I used to be in the Nation of Islam. I used to be there.
You know this. So he said, I don't know what it is, but the brothers never run out of bean pies. No matter what, and they run around the corner somewhere and come back with a fresh batch of bean pies. So the truth of the matter is that we have to take better care of our bodies. And the Elijah Muhammad and what he shared, I mean, disciple-like, and regardless of your, religion or creed or race or ethnicity, the human race, there's certain things that are required as far as nutrients are concerned. And we've been getting it wrong so long because we've allowed financial bottom lines to drive and determine what's on the shelves of the places where we go and shop for food. And I put food in quotes because most of it is not food, because by definition, to be food, it has to be nutritious. And the majority of it, and I will say that the majority of it in this country is not nutritious. Most of the food sold here could not be sold throughout Europe and other places in the world.
That's right.
What does that tell you? I mean, what is that? I mean, capitalism can be a beautiful thing, but when capitalism is allowed to go unchecked with checks and balances, I mean, look at the diabetes rate, the obesity, and it's impacting our community more for socioeconomic reasons. But it's a real shame to be one of the wealthiest nations in the world, have such a high infant mortality rate and such a low life expectancy that's not consistent with a nation that has so much affluence. So we have to do better. We saw this during the pandemic, the disproportionate number of people who outwardly appeared healthy but were suddenly dying, and other folks who got it and barely had a cough or a sneeze. That didn't diminish how serious the virus was. It told us a lot about our immune system and our that we just don't know about because no one's taken the time to tell us. And
Exactly. And it's so interesting. So I feel that was the real reason behind your father creating the Bohemian diet in such a time when Black people didn't create stuff like that. It was mostly white companies that were creating health food, drinks and shakes and Slim Fast and things of that nature. And Dick Gregory, how revolutionary.
To this day, GNC should hold a board seat aside with Dick Gregory's name on it, because Dick Gregory made GNC so much money. GNC back then was not in our community. It was not in Black neighborhoods and Black communities. So with the Bahamian diet, which this is one of the original smaller cans diet. So when that first came on the market, when the Bahamian diet first came on the market, it was a mail order product. It was mail order, and it was multi-level. My dad's mission was to build as many African-American millionaire and multimillionaires from the Bahamian diet. Armstrong Williams, who now owns, hundreds of $1 million in TV, made his first $1 million selling the Bahamian diet.
I know Armstrong.
But ask Armstrong about it. Armstrong became a millionaire selling and there was lots of them. So my dad's mission was because he said, what good is it to be healthy if you're impoverished?
Preach.
What good is it to be wealthy if you're not healthy? That spectrum. And so it was a beautiful thing. So when he finally moved to brick and mortar and went into GNC, GNC couldn't keep it on the shelves. And so Black folks in their neighborhood, whole family, filling up the car with a tank of gas, driving to very suburban, aka very white neighborhoods to find a mall with a GNC, Well, they just weren't buying Brother Dick's product. They were spending their money there. So lots of malls were integrated on the backside of Dick Gregory's Bahamian Diet because
Right.
folks had to go there and get it. And so as depicted in the film, the company Beech Nut later offered my dad something like $36 million to buy it outright. The deal was done. I mean, he was prepared to walk away and be a profoundly wealthy man. When he read the small print, he saw where they were going to discontinue the multi-level. And he said, I made a commitment to all of these folks that have come on and believed in me. I can't sell them out. And there's not a whole lot. So we talk about Dick Gregory walking away from comedy and entertainment, but he's left a lot of money on the table, not intentionally, but because it didn't sit right with his spirit. And he wanted to make sure that he was looking out for his people in our community. And so, I mean, my dad had 16 books, 20 albums. We're doing countless movies, as you mentioned. Joe Morton is doing a one-man play produced by John Legend. There's a Dick Gregory.
That was powerful.
There's an accompany album, hip hop and R&B album that came out with the one and only Dick Gregory. There's just so much there, and we're here. I'll show you this. This is the Japanese version of my dad's book. So, so I learned how to say the title in Japan, just in case I'm ever visiting Japan and I hear someone say it. I can hold
I love that.
It's been a true journey.
I remember that the in the back of that book, he told about the situation at the restaurant and about eating chicken. He said, whatever you do to that chicken, we're going to do it to you. So he gave us the chicken and kissed it.
The three cousins came in, Ku Klux Klan, and they said, boy, whatever you do to that chicken, we're going to do to you. So he picked it up and he kissed it on the behind. He said, line up. That's the humorous side. Like that wasn't scripted. That wasn't prepared. The funniest things, and I've been on Paul Mooney, Richard.
Yeah, that's my boy.
Been around, not on stage, but off stage.
Right.
The funniest things Dick Gregory's ever said in his life has been things he's mumbled under his breath. And just the whole table just fall out. For minutes at a time. So we still hear it. Those of us who were so close with my dad, obviously, I'm one of his sons, but I also managed my dad. I was one of his healthcare providers. We were business partners. We went on to become best friends. So frequently I'll say Dad, or I'll say Dick Gregory or Richard Gregory. Those were all different relationships because I never wanted to be sitting in a boardroom and say, but Papa, Dad. I wanted to make sure that in there we were equals and didn't want to, I, as the son, didn't want to pull rank on the other folks in the team. So it was a beautifully complex, in a good way, relationship that we had all the way through until we lost him. And I loosely say we lost him because he's still so omnipresent. He left so many seeds. And one of 10 Gregory children, our job is just to water the seeds, pull the weeds. None of us are crazy enough to ever try on our dad's shoes for 2 seconds. Those are big shoes. We're just putting them out, keeping them clean for the rest of the world to see and be inspired by a beautiful example of selflessness, selflessness. So and then it gives me opportunities to sit here and engage and talk with you and talk about the unique prism that my father saw health and wellness through. He realized the human body needs more than just food. And most food's not food anyway. On a micro level, the body needs nutrients, little tiny nutrients that get broken down and get into the cell body. Most of those nutrients are broken down, small part of them in the small intestines, but mostly in the large intestines. That's where our microbiome lives. That's where all the microbes that live in the body. So you look at people a nation of people who used to drink small sodas and be fine with it. Now we're a nation of folks that are drinking massive big gulps. Folks can sit and eat an entire box of cookies and say, you're no longer eating for you. You're eating for those rogue microbes that are now dictating your existence, causing sugar blues and all these other things. We have lost control because the microbes can do a lot of good or they can do a lot of harm. And when we don't understand that, so over processed food pretty much gets digested in the small intestines, leaving nothing left but just sugar to find its way into the microbiome. And so we have to do better. The micro, as you know, the brain gut connection, the gut's second brain of the body. That's why when we go on a big date or whatever, we get butterflies. We don't get butterflies in our knee. We don't get butterflies in our brain. We get it in that second brain, the brain gut connection. And so as we learn more as a community, we have to do better, because we don't just have food deserts, we have nutrient deserts. And so, because technically the United States government will allow you to go in and buy a sticky bun and consider that food. And so the body must, and as I saw one of your listeners pop up and talk about parasites, yes, it becomes, so basically everything in the large intestine starts to, which we call the colon, it starts to ferment. And that's why you see folks with big bloated beer bellies, passing gas, belching. All of that is because there's no harmony. I mean, it's just, there's no harmony in the body. And so that balance, and that's what the 4X formula, which was the precursor to the behavior diet, was the precursor to our current energy drink version of it, 3E. It is nutrient dense, increased bioavailability, all natural ingredients with energy drink. And we need, it's just important, because I know there's a lot of— Is that
here? Can we get that here in Canada?
It will be in Canada very soon. So you can get it. And so on Walmart.com in Canada, you'll be able to get it very soon. Right now, it's in the States, but because we're now family, we will be shipping to you. If all the other folks in Canada close here, you can get it in Canada. Share it with everyone. But soon, so right now we're focused on the Texas market. We're using that as our launch pad, but we're getting ready to go national with it. And
that's huge.
Energy drinks have a bad name, and the reason they have a bad name, the first wave 1, which was your Red Bull and your Monster, they were a lot of sugar and they were a lot of synthetic caffeine. And it'll give you, caffeine's a drug, it'll give you energy. Sugar will give you energy, but is it good energy? And
you know what else I saw? I don't know the brand. It was a random test that some people were doing. There's amphetamines. I'm saying that right. Amphetamines in these drinks, in some of these drinks as well. So
a lot of the wave 2 and wave 1s. The wave 2 are your there's so C4 and Celsius. And they use sucralose. And so the problems, I thought I had a can here for a minute, but the problem with sucralose is, which is Splenda, it's genotoxic. It actually, once it gets into your gut, your large intestine, your colon, it damages the DNA, it damages the genes. These are things 10 years later, people wake up someday and say, how did I get cancer? You've been eating it, breathing it. I walk in some people, where I travel around the world, I Uber and Lyft a lot. And I was doing an interview with Nick Cannon once, and I said, you know what? I can tell how sick someone is when they pick me up by how many air fresheners are in the car. Air fresheners, we're such a confused body. We think that if you want fresh air, you roll down a window. It's not chemicals that are sprayed onto a piece of paper or sprayed out of a can, and we say, fresh air. It's the and when people say, I want that new car smell, well, that's cancer. That's toxic. Gassing is the new car smell. And then people go and spray new car smell back in their car.
Give me some cancer.
Well, I don't know where the cancer came from. I said, let me spend 24 hours with you.
Crazy.
I'm certain I can go through a checklist. And that's just what we're responsible. We're not responsible for our water, where we live, responsible for air quality, what we're exposed to in our workplace. So it's complicated. In the time, 30 years as a chiropractor in DC, when folks get sick, that's when they want to suddenly find out and get mad at the system. Now's the time to get mad not just to be angry, but mad and move to action to do better. And so the information, shows like this and so many other platforms, the information's out there, and we really just need to do better.
Yeah, I'm proud of the Dick Gregory legacy, because I've been with Dick. Every time Dick Gregory used to come to the UAM with the late Alton Maddox. I would always stand security. I don't care. I wasn't getting paid for it. I just know we got to protect Baba, and that's how I think. I stood right back there because I trained in martial arts for years, and I'll stay right there and just make sure he all right. Because he's my brother. He was the elder that one of the fathers. So, and then, but I met Ayana,
Yes,
You're
yes.
beautiful. Tell her I would like to interview her, please.
Okay, consider it done.
Her singing is so beautiful. She sang over there at the UAM. We hugged, we took pictures, all of that. But I would love to interview her because her singing is healing.
It is.
Too, and her voice. I know she's born October 2nd or October 20th. I think she's born.
Now you're gonna catch me. I believe it's October 20th. With 9 brothers and sisters.
I remember her birthday.
My mom's air traffic control for birthdays. So
yeah, she knows. And happy belated birthday to your mom. Happy belated birthday to your mom. It was November 24th, right? November 24th?
November 24th, 86 years old. And I think Yana posted on her page her dancing and having.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
She does not have a care in the world, and she's earned that. She has definitely earned that. I want to back up for 1 nanosecond to what you just mentioned. That love that you described, that when Baba came, you came and stood security. When my dad would arrive in Houston, there'd be like 30, 40 brothers on Harley Davidsons that would just surround his car. And you would think, Obama was arriving because they'd stop traffic. They would, and they do it for Minister Farrakhan as well. There's a level of love there. And it wasn't until after my father passed, because my father lived in airports, that I won't say the airline because it might get the brother in trouble, but he was a high-ranking manager. And he came to me and he said, you know what? Your dad was notoriously late for all of his flights. So whenever we saw him on the manifest, we went into Dick Gregory mode. We'd start slowing down, boarding the plane. It was deep. He said that the rule that if there's only one gate attendant and they have to go to the bathroom, they have to stop the boarding process, close the door, and go to the bathroom. And they'd have their walkie-talkies communicating to check in. Okay, he's here. And once he I said, that's power. All the money in the world can buy that type of power, that type of love. And also when he would ride on Amtrak, frequently between New York, when you would see him in DC, people would be like, your dad rides Amtrak alone? Or Miss Cicely Tyson would do the same thing. Yeah. I said, you think they're alone? You got another thing coming. You got a whole nother thing coming. Love that. And when me and my dad would be on Amtrak, the conductors would lock the bathroom closest to us and give us the key and say, this bathroom is only for Baba to use on this. So, I mean, that the love was so palpable and it just was a beautiful thing. And I continue to hear stories like what you just shared. And it's always so heartwarming. And I will say this. Dick Gregory knew his people loved him. He was he didn't, some folks die and they wonder, they have my dad. I mean, it was like a botanical garden in the beautiful suite we were in at the hospital where my dad transitioned. And it was a who's who of everyone who's ever loved him that was calling and checking in. And I think of the just how polar opposite that was from Martin, Megger, Fred Hampton, so many to be able to. So in my dad's life, he gave an example of what more those folks are, and all the folks whose names we don't know, how much more they had to give, how many more. The reason my dad had 16 books, the reason he had 20 albums, because he had a whole lifetime. He wasn't cut down in his 30s or 20s by a racist system. When I hear people talk about Rainbow Coalition, well, Fred Hampton was the Rainbow Coalition. Fred Hampton was doing things, reaching out to the collective body of oppressed people and bringing them together. And so sometimes, and I go back to this film here, it's so important that we don't have to tell our story, but we have to be part of it, and it has to be people that love us. So part of the reason my dad and I formed Dick Gregory Media was to bring Black glamour back to Hollywood, because Hollywood was built on glamour. My dad would say, white boy fall off a motorcycle, he's bloody one minute, next thing he's in a clean, brand new tuxedo, like nothing even happened. We didn't get that. And so to go back and recalibrate and tell these stories, I don't know if either of you saw the new Elvis Presley about a year ago.
I was going to watch it. I didn't watch it yet.
The only reason they do a fairly good job, and it's not Black folks who've done this film. When I got halfway through it, I had to pause and Google to see who did it, because there's so much Black glamour in that film. I was certain it had to be Black folks involved, and there wasn't a single one. Wow. So can tell, because sometimes it's not all Black folks love Black folks. There's a lot of movies that have been put out by Black folks. So I talk about Fred Hampton, and when the movie first came out, I was troubled by the title. That was the first kind of indicator that, hey, something may be off here. I'm like, why are we blaming Judas, why are we blaming this street thug who young doesn't know any better, and not blaming J. Edgar Hoover for the monster that he was? It should have been Judas and the beast, Judas and the monster. I didn't. So that threw me off. And then when I saw it, it didn't tap into, and I don't think it was intentional, but it didn't tap into the beauty of Fred Hampton. It didn't talk. We got into the kill pigs. It didn't expound on who he was as a person. It didn't him enough. And so my dad was a movie buff. My dad saw Django probably 36 times when Django first came out. So what people don't know is my dad was advanced a copy of the script like 3 years before Django came out. And he gave notes on it and gave tweaks. He would do that often. He gave notes on it and made tweaks. And he said, when you watch Django Unchained, he was like, you understand why white folks have been rewriting history, because no matter what happened, now here in 2020, 16, 15, whenever they came, you as a black person walked out of that movie feeling good about something we had no business to feel good about. Into your mind, it doesn't know the difference. And so we see why so much history has been repackaged, redone. And so Dick Gregory Media, which now goes under the name of Tower Hill Entertainment, there's a lot of life story rights that we purchased. It's a lot of stories we're going to tell because now, due to this digital age, all of us will be long and gone. Someone will come and find some flash equivalent, and all of that will be brought back to life. And we have to be part of telling our own story. And that's what you saw right there. A lot of people who loved the man, loved the body of work, loved his people, and came together and did a phenomenal film project.
And thank you for that.
Thank you.
So do you think that because Dick Gregory was so bold and loud about the nonviolence aspect of fighting for civil rights, and reversing a bit here, when I remember watching when he went and he had to do the stand-up in the Playboy establishment, and they were like, listen, we don't think you should do it. We actually rented this out to some people that don't like you. And he's like, no, I worked so hard. I'm going to still do it. And the fact that he got Ku Klux Klan members to laugh at him is just like next level to me. It's unbelievable. So my question to you is, do you think that because he was such a truth warrior and such a champion for nonviolence, that's why he was able to navigate the waters that so many others like him couldn't?
So that's a great question. So thank you for that, Carrie Ann. I think that what happened at the Playboy Club was something that my dad knew in order for him to scale to a level to reach the type of success where he was trying to reach. It's not enough for us to tell our stories just to our audience. That's preaching to the choir. When my dad first came out with his autobiography with the very colorful title, he told black folks, I didn't write this book for you. You lived this with me. I wrote this book for white folks to tell them so they can understand the detriment of not just white superiority as a mindset, but the detriment of the socioeconomic system, whether it's banking, whether it's education, everything being so skewed and against black people, to show them once we get an opportunity what we can do with our life. And he was leading by example. So to that point, imagine this, for this group of Southerners, for them to be in Chicago at the Playboy Club was probably one of the best thrills of their life. And so for them to think whoever they thought was going to come out on that stage, old Blue Eyes, whoever else they thought, for Dick Gregory to come walking out, a shock, an absolute shock. And I often think, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about how my dad impacted other folks, but for them to sit and watch this intelligent black man, so beautifully dressed and just handsome and clear and educated, when they went back down, so that had to change their had to change their celebration of what it was like when Dr. King went to the mountaintop and saw that was them going to the mountain. I went and I saw what the future of black people are, and we should start doing better, because at some point we're going to realize they realize they've been lied to. They were told they're dumb, they're shiftless, they're lazy. It said, that's not what I just saw up on that stage. I
Right.
went to the mountaintop. And again, I don't frequently think of it, but when people ask me this question, I'd say that's its own documentary for someone else to do, not me,
Yeah.
but to
Yeah.
show just the impact. And my dad didn't just do that as a one-off. As a result of that, the Jack Paar show called, which was the Tonight Show, and my dad loved Jack Paar, but it was when it was brought to his attention that Black folks were never allowed to sit on the sofa, he was flabbergasted because he said he had got caught up in all the glamour of the show. He never noticed that blatant racism. So when Jack Parr's office called and got him on the phone, and he said, no, I won't do your show, Jack Parr was shocked. It was the biggest television show in the world. Mr. Parr called and said, Dick, this is Jack Parr. He said, I know, I recognize your voice, Mr. Parr. He said, we don't understand why you are not willing to, we have the biggest show. He said, oh, you have to explain that to me. I'm a huge fan. I'm not going to do your show because you don't allow your Black guests to sit on the sofa after they've come out and entertain. And that's what allows us to become part of the family. That's what makes us approachable and not some entity just to stare at and be entertained by. And as a result of that, my dad mentioned, he was like, Jack Parr almost responded like he didn't realize it. And sometimes with white privilege, you won't realize some of these things until the Dick Gregorys of the world, through their books, through material, point it out to you. And that's the importance of us doing movies and media, that, we're not begging or asking, we're highlighting and showing in a way that is so digestible and easy to understand the discrepancies and the damage of the unlevel playing field. But my dad was hell-bent to level the playing field and willing to sacrifice himself, his mind, body, spirit, and his career and his family. He made it very clear to the family, the movement comes before Lil, his wife, and comes before my 10 children. And he meant that. And we all were very clear. We were raised as activists. I was 8 years old the first time I was arrested with little plastic zip ties. All of my little siblings, all us little Gregorys, zip ties, and they would separate the children from the adults. They put us, we were down in Louisiana, and it was hot. It was from Massachusetts. That was the type of heat I didn't understand. And they left us on these hot buses for hours on end with no water. I mean, the cruelty that was subjected, it was terrorism. Like I mean, that's what lynching was. Lynching's not genetic cleansing. There was not, when you look at the numbers of lynching was never designed to annihilate a people. It's designed to make you behave. We're showing an example of what will happen. They needed you. They needed us to work. They needed us to, they weren't trying to kill us all off, because then who's going to do it? So so that's the, so we talk about terrorism so often now, without understanding that a lot of the techniques we now see being utilized other places in the world came from the Deep South. And so it was, so to stand up against that in a fearless way, be willing to chip away at it. Oh, I mean, I could talk about these stories for 10 shows, because there's so much, and being there on my own and being with the others, there's so many unsung civil rights heroes. And a lot of people don't understand nonviolence is a form of warfare. These folks were soldiers. It was a tactic, and it definitively worked. When you look at Tiananmen Square, when folks sat down in front of a tank, if it wasn't for nonviolence, we wouldn't talk about that now in 2024. Just been another person shot. And so the statement of, I know what you can do to me, and still I'm not afraid to it, takes a much bigger man, a much bigger woman, a much bigger child. And it really is a form of warfare. And we now see it being studied in that way. But if you look at Malcolm, you look at Martin, you understand it really, when we say it takes a village, it really takes all of it, all of those different angles. Because part of that, well, we know we have the nonviolent group here, but we also know we have the group over here that's armed. We have the Black Panther. So part of that was understanding no war is ever won in a linear way. It's a way that we have the Army, Navy, Marines, just like that. It's going to be a multi-prong. And to sit back now and see all of the, the global benefits, as my dad said, Black folks didn't benefit from the civil rights movement. Handicapped white folks, white women, they've benefited more from the U.S. civil rights movement than Black folks did. And it's our job as future generations, as next generations, to make sure we continue to do the work We have so many more resources like this platform we're on now that our parents didn't have. And it's just important that we stay out there in front of it and keep our finger on the pulse and keep fighting for equality.
Let's give that a round of applause. I should have been pressing this button a lot, but I could. I know. Caught up into what you're saying.
Oh, good.
But
we'll add it in.
One thing I want to talk about from the book itself, in the chapter Lil, which was very important to me because there was a time he was thinking about giving up, and she said to him, Greg, for me and Michelle, don't ever quit what you believe in and what you want to do. The things you told me about your mother, if she could do all these things for 6 of you, I can do anything you want me to do. I understand you can't always come down here. I look for you every day. And when the day is gone and the week is gone, I just keep seeing you coming, and I know you're on your way. I think that was such a powerful part of a woman's support for their man, and to encourage them to do that.
My dad would often say, us Black folks, we got it backwards. We call our women strong and our trucks beautiful. And he was like, we need to understand. Yes, my dad would often say the strongest 2 forces in the history of America, Black woman, Black church. 2023 people hear that and they say, well, because they're thinking of the current state of the church. They don't understand. Back in the civil rights movement, the 30s and 40s, if your house was set on fire, you didn't call the fire department. They probably set it. You called the church. If you were shot you didn't call the police. They probably shot you. You called the church. And so the church was a nucleus of safety and protection that helped folks to buy homes, get seed money for businesses. The church was the government, in a sense, the nucleus of the government for our community. And Black women, since the oppressor seen them less of a threat, were able to get in and penetrate. And still to this day, it's because I live in Washington, D.C., although I'm rarely here these days, and I'll see so many Black women pull up, get out of their car, dressed to the nine to go in and work for their government job or law firm. And then I'll see a brother get out in a sweatsuit, walk around, get in the driver's seat, and drive off. The detriment of allowing, early on, white folks allowing Black women only to come in and work, you still see that ripple effect all this time later. There's so many systems. After World War II, and the government drafted the GI Bill, most Americans carry their wealth in their home and property. They're not invested property, but their personal property that they live in, their home. And Black soldiers didn't have access to the GI Bill. They weren't able to buy homes till much later. So just think about that when we're 6 generations later saying, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, pay for your own schooling. Well, had we had an opportunity to invest in our families back then and create this multi-generational wealth. So I don't spend a whole lot of time looking in the rearview mirror about what was done wrong. I spend the majority of my time fixing, leading by example, building. My dad left a lot of money on the table. I'm going back there and reclaiming it, not because I need things, but to build things as example, lift up, folks who have been marginalized. And, we don't, we don't have a monopoly on that, but we significantly were disproportionately impacted by that. But to make sure and understand that, and I'm also seeing one of your callers put in there, the feminist movement was a CIA op. It absolutely, and that op to this day, I see the ramifications of it in 2023 in Washington, D.C., and probably many other downtown urban areas. So it's important that we understand our history, but too many of us stay stuck in it and don't say, wait, take the strength of knowing that and use that knowledge. Like my dad would say about, once you put the glasses on, you can't take them off. That means there's work to be done. Don't try to force other people. We've kind of weaponized information in our community. Like, I know this, you don't. I'm the one, and we argue about intellect instead of coming together. You know this, I know that, and we build a force that's a force to be reckoned with out of our collective intellect. And so I'll say this, and I'll stop. When my dad later in life, white fans would come up to him and say, oh, Mr. Gregory, it's a pleasure to meet you. They'd shake hands. They'd ask for a photo. Done. And I was like, wow, is my dad kind of starting to be a little racist? He's treating his white fans so much better. So I took a step back to watch, and I noticed when most Black folks came up, they'd shake his hand, take a picture, and say, you know what, Dick, I think you were wrong when you said it became like almost a let's challenge. Oh, what you said about 9/11 and what you said about, said, you know, this acknowledge, thank you, you know, hug, photo, and keep it moving. There's something, and part of it, I understand, so much has been taken from us. Yeah. Every little bit we get. And we talk about zoot suits. Well, Black folks wore zoot suits because they felt invisible. They wanted to be seen. And so you look now, the modern day zoot suit, you know, it's when you see these young kids in urban areas on dirt bikes and just hundreds of them moving around like a swarm, I get out of the way. I said, we've made them invisible. Now they're going to insist that you see them. I'm not jumping out there saying you should do, because I would be mad too if I was so marginalized. So I say, get out of the way the same way we do when the presidential motorcade's coming by and late for work. Get out of the way and realize we have to do better. Folks are crying out because they're not being seen. And it's important, not just for us right here, but collectively to see these folks and help them to find options and give them opportunity.
I see your sister pop. I see your sister pop then. So big up to Ayana. We just talked about you because I want to interview you, Ayana. So
now it doesn't need to go through me. You're hearing it right here. Now let me say this: if you don't hear back from her, let me know.
I will call you back.
The street from me. I'll go knock on her door.
Yeah, I love y'all. Still live where y'all live, and
So we're in DC, where my dad spent most. My dad had a home here in DC as well. So me, my dad, my brother Johanse, and sister Ayana, most of us have always been in the DC area. My sister Satori now lives here. So I have a home here, but 90% of the time I'm in Texas these days as we're scaling the new brand and the new business. And so my mom's still in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So she's still there. And so it just is, it's all love. It's all love. It's all laughter. It's all just such a beautiful opportunity to showcase, you know, greatness and what the power of love. And so it is. My dad would always say, it's not important to just be loving. You have to be lovable, because someone can, you know, beat you and say you love. The people can love you to life, or they can love you to death. And it's important to understand that uncalibrated love can come very close to hate or can surpass hate. So to understand this and just to allow the beauty that is life. There's so much abundance in our reality in America. There's so much abundance. It's hard to understand that there's so many people that are not living on the standard that we are living on, and to realize we can do more with our resources. We can, yes, we're talking about the Middle East and Gaza and Israel because it's being forced. I won't say forced, but it's sensory overload. There's so much conflict that has been going on over this sadly on this planet, and it's important that we don't let the evening news dictate to us what takes a priority. So all suffering we want to see come to an end. All apartheids, all injustices. It says don't cherry pick and tell. And it's, you look at it and you take that unique third eye Dick Gregory in the jeans lens, and you can see right through it. And it's sad when you see how many folks just get caught up in it and don't realize the bigness of it and the power of media. But now, due to social media, we can really help to change that narrative, and more through folks talking like me. It's through imagery. And that's why so many people on IG, I'm almost saying that I'm glad I'm not a shrink, because folks almost don't. There's so much good medicine and memes these days, just that really help you recalibrate and understand things. And I'm saying it's free. It's all out there. I saw someone ask the name of the drink. So 3E Energy. We call it an elixir because it has erythritol in it. And regardless of what people have told you about erythritol is natural. It's in fruit. The human body produces it. But what it is, it's an incredible blood glucose stabilizer. So the reason that we use in small amounts of erythritol is because it helps to regulate. There's so many folks in our community that have diabetes or pre-diabetes or just glucose intolerance. It helps them allow those folks need energy too. So the amount of diabetics that reach out to me and thank me for the opportunity to have an energy drink. In a perfect world, calories, food is energy, but most of us work so hard these days, it's almost impossible to have easy access to energy. If you're on a road trip, you're driving, and so often, and now, work is no longer work. Work is 3 a.m. Folks are on their bed with blue light going in their eyes on their phone. There's great apps on these phones that you can turn your phone at night to red light. Red light's like a campfire. It's like moonlight. It doesn't disrupt the brain to the level that blue light does. But we can't put this genie back in the bottle. That's not going to happen. This technological genie, not going to, we have, reality, augmented reality, spatial reality and commuting. Apple's new glasses that are coming out in February, everyone's going to be walking around with glasses on our head, but they say on the average day, thousands of times we do this. And as a chiropractor, that's horrifying to me that we're looking at our device. So we have to do something that's better. It may be lenses, but we're not going to put that genie back in the bottle. It's important that we find a way to coexist and live with it. When microwaves first came out, old grandparents would tell everyone in the room to get out of the room before they turned it on. And it was a big crank to turn it on. Now, look at a 2023 grandma. She'll turn the microwave on. Everyone's in the room. She'll put her forehead against it as she's texting. And the reason is that we've evolved. And so a lot of the rays and things that used to be harmful, the body is a self-healing organism. And so if you go in your basement and get a can of Raid from 1970 and spray it on a 2023 roach or ant, they'll lick the nozzle and thank you for it because it's no longer effective. That's selfishly, as humans, we think evolution is just us. It's everything, including the microbes in our belly, our microbiome. They're evolving. People say, well, whenever I don't eat sugar, I don't feel good. That's those microbes controlling your brain. And that's why we fasted. Typically, once or twice a year as a family, we would do 3 to 5 day water fast. And later in life, my dad and I would always get together on the holidays and do 7-day water fast. And people think, oh, I fast to lose weight. Fasting's a horrible way to lose weight. You fast to reset your metabolism, reset your microbiome, reset. Cancer loves sugar. So one of the best ways you can guarantee all these cancer causing agents we come in contact with daily is to reset it annually. So I encourage people to read my dad's books, read the information out there on fasting, understand medicinal fasting, profoundly different for starving yourself as an activist. So medicinal fasting is something that's very different. Understand the power of it. The medical community is waking up to it. A lot of diabetics now are being informed by their physicians to learn and study fasting. There's a lot of people now that are doing intermittent fasting. So it's a term that we use called biochemical individuality. We're all dramatically different. One person's medicine's another person's poison. So when you find something that works for you, don't finger wave and say, well, this is what you need to do. Share that information and encourage all of us as individuals to find the right path forward. And it's complicated, but it's one of the things I'm certain of. Laughter and love can rise above, maybe not permanently rise above it all, but on a genetic level can really help the human body to heal. So anytime we have the opportunity to chop it up, laugh and share and express love, I'm always honored and happy to do it.
Awesome. What does the 3E stand for?
3E stands for Essential Energy Elixir. And so elixirs, my dad used an elixir when he ran from Los Angeles, California to New York City. So he didn't eat any solid food. When you blend and back then it was just called the 4X formula, but it was a nutrient dense protein formula. Orange juice has just 0.5% alcohol in it. So the alcohol that's in an elixir, it's not enough alcohol that it would cause someone. It's not the type of alcohol that gets you drunk. It's the alcohol that's in an elixir is to help to dissolve the minerals in it. So a lot of medicine uses small amounts of alcohol in it to help to absorb the minerals in it. And you mentioned the Caribbean shake. I see you getting it up there right now. So the current version, the current iteration of the Dick Gregory Bahamian diet is the Dick Gregory Caribbean shake. We are in the process that uses green pea protein. We're in the process, and I say we, that's not my dad and his business partner, John Bellamy, did that together. My business partner is also John Bellamy on the 3E energy drink. So John Bellamy's been around the Gregory family for a profoundly long time. We own the rights to George Washington Carver rubbing oil. I use that on my patients. Or the power and the healing power of the peanut. So a lot of people know don't eat peanuts because a lot of mold in peanuts and peanut butter, but the oil and the way that it's extracted and it's topical, so you don't need to worry about that. But currently the Caribbean shake is back ordered because there's a new pea protein vendor that's being set up for. So we really haven't rolled that out properly yet. There's a handful of folks kind of still in the low-key research and development because we want to get it certified as a meal replacement so people can use government assistance to go out and purchase it. And the threshold to do that's a little higher with FDA. So probably be another year or two till we get meal replacement status, and then you'll see it everywhere. So we're trying to do our part and keep things out there, keep folks moving. And now more than ever, we're working harder than ever. And so, even when we're playing on our devices, we're working. Folks see me on my phone. I said, I wrote this whole book. So this whole book that we've been discussing, the entire book was edited and my sections written on my smartphone. I don't use it. The HarperCollins was amazed. I said, I can crank through an entire chapter just because I'm so used to, as a chiropractor, all my notes I took on my phone.
Right.
And I know it's not good for the body. That's why I retired, so I could move away from these things. This book here, so there's two last books that I'm doing for HarperCollins. This one here, and we have a HarperCollins kids book that's called 7 Million Steps. It's based on my dad's story of the run from Los Angeles, California to New York City. And basically, we took my dad's height and foot size and calculated it would take 7 million of his steps to get from Los Angeles to New York City. So the children's book is called 7 Million Steps. It'll be about another year and a half before it's out, but a lot less writing with a children's book. So a lot and a great team. And Frank Morrison is the illustrator of it. Frank has indicated this may potentially be his last project. Why am I forgetting Brother Derek's last name? Not Derek Barnes. Yes, Derek Barnes. Derek Barnes is my collaborator and joint writer. So it just is there's wonderful opportunities to serve on every single platform. And it just is a real blessing and a high honor to have the opportunity to keep giving back.
Wow. How long did it take from California to New York?
So my dad was running on any given day. They were running 25 miles or 50 miles. So he was either doing one marathon or two marathons a day, no solid food. And they did it just over 2 months. And I say they, because Muhammad Ali came out, if you Google the images, you'll see Ali out there for a lot of it. And Ali has some great quotes about why he would never try to keep up with Dick Gregory running. And so my dad was a lifelong runner, and which he raised all us Gregorys as runners. And so it took just over 2 months for them to run from Los Angeles, California to New York City. And so we're in talks with ESPN about turning that into a 30 for 30 episode of Dick Gregory. There's just so many. Every aspect of his life is another book, another movie, another feature film. So we're just doing our part to make sure, because if you don't keep a legacy alive, it slowly dies. It slowly, and some of us, if we're being fair, most of us don't do enough.
He's all right. I think he got stuck. Hey, I don't know. Can he
do so much? You just need to. You need to reach back, reset. I was just saying, every once in a while, you get folks that come along that it's so revolutionary what they do, and it's not about naming streets after them, pats on their back. I think my dad's biggest goal would be not necessarily for his name to keep being said, but for his body of work and what he represented to begin. He didn't want credit for it. He didn't want buildings named after him. He said the moment they start building statues for you, they start coming up with reasons to tear them down. Not to make it about him, but to make it about his movement, his legacy, in the body of work and what was passionate and what he fought for. So it just is as we sit here, we're doing right now what he, he's smiling down, seeing that we're discussing, we're chopping it up, we're drilling down. And more than anything, Dick Gregory was a master teacher. So we're teaching. We're taking this opportunity to teach and preach.
That's amazing, because like I was saying earlier, there's so much about him that I did not know, and it's so beautiful to learn it, and King Simon has been dropping little bits, from for a while about him, just his interaction, but to hear his true story of who he was as a young man and to see all of what he has done in the world, it allows us to have a deeper appreciation for the man, for the angel, if I will, that he was.
And most angels and most superheroes work in tandem and in pairs. And Dick Gregory's angel and superhero was Lil. And you called out the section in the book. And it's a long section. It's one of the longer sections in the book. And that's from a transcript. So we had my dad in audio saying that. If anyone, when we do my mom's life story movie, it's going to be Call Lil, because anyone that ever bumped into Dick Gregory anywhere said, Dick, I want to interview, Dick, I want to talk. Call Lil. And his number
every time. Every time. Call Lil.
So the Lillian Gregory biopic will certainly be called Call Lil. And when you called Lil, things got done. To this day, when you call Lil, things
I still have your mom's number. Yes.
Not changed.
I still have her number, because he told me when I was going to book him for the event, he said call Lil and she'll take care of me. And I sent the money and made sure everything is on point.
If you called me or if you called Ayana, Brother Dick probably would have never wound up on your show. So you were given the proper. Whenever I hear someone tell me, your father told me to call someone else, I said, he ain't doing that. So if Dick Gregory was showing up somewhere, he didn't know where he was going until my mom gave him his marching orders every morning. That's what a nucleus is all about, a dynamic duo.
In closing, I just want to say something from this last part that you wrote. Hard on the outside, soft on the inside, but willing to stick his neck out. It said Dick Gregory died on August 19, 2017 at 8:40 p.m. in the beautiful boutique hospital on the outskirts of Northeast Washington, D.C., a short distance from the Rock Creek Park and Potomac River trails he loved to hike. His hiking boots swapped for wings. His soul belongs to the ancestors now. And oh, what a reunion that must have been. I think that is such a powerful. I read the whole thing, but all the commentary you made really touched me because it's coming from a son. And I read all of your commentary first. And I said, and then I read Lil, then I read all of Lil first, because that touched me even more. My grandmother's name is Lillian, and I remember the love she shared with me before she transitioned. And to this day, I was just telling Carrie Ann that my grandmother comes to me in my dreams and say, you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right.
They're still there. They're omnipresent. The limitations are in us.
Yes.
And I'm sure at some point we'll understand, and I don't know what it is, but it's so much bigger. And I still get emotional hearing you read that, because the bond that my dad and I had was so unique and so beautiful. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't think Dr. Gregory's gotten over it. Well, you never get over losing a parent or losing a child, I would imagine. And you're not supposed, that get over stuff is taught. Mm-hmm. That's learned behavior. But the reality is my dad had sacrificed so much and was in a fair amount of discomfort and pain. He was clear that he was ready to go. And I say that not because I assume it, because he said it. And so he was ready to go. He had a lot more colorful way to explain it that I won't say on this program. But he was very clear. And to have that, this last 7 days that he spent in the hospital, we didn't realize the underlying condition was as significant as it was. So for 6 of those 7 days, we were in there laughing, having a good old time. Mm-hmm. It was just like we were in a hotel room visiting with him. And I think back on that. And for a lot of my siblings who didn't work with my dad, this was some of the most quality time for that week that they had spent with him in some time, because he was always ripping and running, to the point you made a moment ago. So even that was divine. And I know I'm talking to two very spiritual folks here because I read up on both of you, so you can appreciate this. The day after my dad died was the solar eclipse.
Yes, it's on there. Yes, it's in there.
And if you know Dick Gregory, he wrote very little later in life. And so when I was later packing up all of his things back at his home, and all of that was so part of the reason I wanted to do it all myself was just because that was so therapeutic. But I found this little handheld calendar that he had with him. And I'd always say, he doesn't write a thing in them. And I spun through, I said, well, let me go to the day we lost him. Nothing was written there, but the next day in his very unique handwriting was him highlighting the fact that that was the day of the solar eclipse. He had wrote that in that was the only thing in that book. And it just showed to me his connection with the universe was so much deeper than what most of us could even realize. And the reason it's not that we're not intelligent enough, we just have so much learned misinformation about who we are. And I don't just mean as Black folks, I mean as human beings, who we are, what we're into, what our capabilities are. And he saw through that. And so it was the last, and I say this in the movie, and it's still emotional for me, the last facial expression, because my dad had lost the ability to speak towards the end, was just a beautiful wink that he gave. And I took that wink as to, all right, champ, you did a good job, Doc. Everything's going to be okay. And, it's work time. I had to go get the rest of my siblings in, get my mom in. It just, in America, the birthing process and the dying process, we turn into a medical emergency. It doesn't always rise to that level. And so there were some difficult decisions to be made about some things that could have potentially been done. Had they been done, the probability of those surgeries working were so slim. My dad would have been on a wheelchair the rest of his life. He would have been on dialysis. And I didn't make that decision because that's too big of a decision for one person to make. As we were discussing it, the machines in his room started making all kind of horrible sounds and alarms. And I could tell from the doctor's look, I said, my pops just made that decision for us. And sure enough, that's what it was. The next day when I got home, my wife, who's a journalist and had the glasses from her news place to look at the eclipse, the moment I looked up and in the noise and just, bandwidth completely maxed out, the moment I looked up, the sun and the moon were the exact juxtaposition that and no exaggeration, it perfectly mirrored the last wink that I saw. And that was the first time that I broke down. It was just like, my pops always had a rule when we would leave. Anyone he loved, he'd say, hey, just when you get home, give me a ring. Let the phone ring one time. I know you made it. For Christian Gregory, that was the ring. That was the ring that, wherever the next afterlife is, that was the ring that he made. That was the ring that he made it there. And honestly, I've been A-OK ever since. And it actually added to the fuel and fire of me wanting to continue to tell his story, continue to kind of hold up his legacy, and just a absolute high honor every time I'm able to share these stories and tell these stories.
Thank you.
This work. So thank you both so very much.
Thank you. Iyanla saying I love that part. Yeah. Can't wait to get you on, Iyanla. And also I'm working on Mark Gregory because I've been to a few comedy shows with him.
Very good.
Is he your son or who's
he's our cousin? So Mark's our cousin. Mark
is your cousin. Right. He's one of the brothers.
Right. Mark was touring with my dad. So very funny brother, good brother. So also, like with Iyanla, also with Mark, if you don't get them, let me know. Yeah.
He said he wants to do the interview. He DM'd me back. He wants to use the interview, but then he don't show up. He don't call me back. Right. So I'm like, I'll call you.
I think what we say when that happens, I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Christian,
all right, my brother.
Thank you both so much.
So much.
Peace. I appreciate you. Peace to you. Thank you so much.
Love you, brother. Thank you. All right. That's right. That's our brother, the one, the only Christian Gregory. Woo! Iyanla says, anytime. Iyanla, you have one of those angelic voice. That's why I know you're very healing. Even when you do the play about your father, that's a powerful play that you do, a very healing play about your father. And we definitely need to have on a healing vibe one day. So she's a beautiful spirit. When I met her at the UAM, and I don't know if she remembers, she met me at the UAM. And at that time I was married to a Muslim sister there. And then we both went over there and took pictures with her. I still got the pictures too. So, but big up to her and big up to Christian Gregory. Remember, family, this is his websites, but in the description, there's all of his websites, all the links to the movie, to the documentary, everything, all of it is on there, everything. But these are the two websites that I've been promoting. But in the description, you have all of his website, the stuff that he sent us in the email. Got all of it in the description of this particular video. So make sure if you missed it, you can rewind and listen to the stories that we shared, the questions that me and my dear Carrie Ann did. We did a great job, sister. Go give you a round of applause.
That was so awesome to hear. You know, his firsthand story about his dad, and just it's that was so beautiful.
No, and legacy is so important. I try to express that to my children. That's why I wrote my books and all that kind of stuff. You know, that these are things that I'm leaving for y'all. And if y'all want to remix them, your names and your pictures are in all these books. Y'all just go ahead and take them and remix them, because things that's being said is never going to go out of style. People always want to get that motivation from because all I like to write is motivational stuff to help people go. Even my book, No Promotion is Bad Promotion, just spell my name right. That book is just about my journey into promotion. So I think it's so important. I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I I'm blown away at how Christian Gregory has taken up the mantle to spread his father's legacy. And you know, he has his own life and career, but it's so meaningful for him to make sure that people know about what his father did and the work that he did, and really expand that and allow it to live on. It's so selfless. I think it's so beautiful. So just deeply grateful that he came on to share this with us and with all of you all.
Yeah. You know, and I found out recently that my father is writing a book also. So it's going to be very interesting, because I will interview him, no doubt, because I know his trauma from childhood and all the stuff that he went through. So it's that from Jamaica to here and all that kind of stuff, that to one point he was thrown out of the house because the stepfather didn't like him. You know, a lot of stuff, you know, we go through with our parents and our family and all, and stepfathers and stepmothers sometimes. But I'm glad he's writing. You know, I want him to finish it so we can get it in. He's 80 years of age now. So big up to Daddy. Big up to my father, who I still talk to regularly. My mother's 84, and I still talk to them regularly. That's why I love what Christian Gregory is doing and about Lil. Maybe we can interview his mother. That would be a beautiful story, a beautiful interview. So when they, because she looked like she was dancing and enjoying herself on Facebook. I was watching. I even said, "Happy birthday, Mother Lillian," and I just shouting her out, because it's a beautiful thing to know that he still, can show love to his mom, and also still by keeping this legacy alive, show love to his dad too. So, but my dear, it's been fun. Right? It's been fun. Well, family, we like all of you. We thank all of you for tuning in and locking in, and thank all of you for tuning in and locking in and keeping part of it. Any last words, my beautiful sister?
Stay fantabulous, everyone.
Stay fantabulous.
Lead from your heart. Yes.
That's right. Lead with your heart. Thank you.
And see you next week.
See you next week. And next week, we do have a good show with an author. So we're going to be dealing with that. Can't wait to have her on also. All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Peace. Content disclaimer. The views, comments, and opinions expressed by guest speakers or authors on this YouTube channel do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by this channel's broadcasters and its sponsors. Parental guidance is advised. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teachers, scholarship, education, and research. For fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringed.